How's it going, everyone? My name is Ed, and one question that I receive quite a lot is about my Lexus sc300 NAT build. So if you're curious about how to boost your Lexus sc300 and how much it's going to cost, you've come to the right place, because in this video, I'm going to break it all down. All right, so I'm going to assume that by now, everybody here knows what a 2J is, and they know what the differences are between a VVTi motor and a non-VVTi motor, and they have a general sense or a general idea of what the limitations are, how much each can make. So I'm not gonna talk about any of that in this video. We're only gonna focus on how to NAT your GE motor itself. And what a proper, or what I would say a proper NAT kit comprises of are basically three essential things: the turbo kit, the fuel system, and the ECU, or basically the brains of the system, what's gonna control everything as far as making power goes. All right, so remember the rule here. You got cheap, fast, and reliable, but you can only pick two. So if you build it cheap and fast, it's not gonna be reliable. And if you build it reliable and fast, it's not gonna be cheap. And if you build it cheap and reliable, it's not gonna be fast. So because of all the questions that I've received about this particular topic, it seems like we're gonna go ahead and focus mostly on budget here and just mainly stick with that last one there. We're gonna talk about how to build a cheap but reliable, at least cheap in my opinion, but very reliable NAT setup. All right, so let's talk about your turbo kit. Now, you're gonna wanna get something that's gonna be more on the completed side, and what that should look like is it'll come with a manifold, obviously a turbo, intercooler, wastegate, blow-off valve, intercooler piping, couplers, clamps, oil lines, maybe some vacuum lines. It's gonna include every single thing you need to basically plumb it all together, mount the turbo up, start it up, and then basically it's boosted and ready to go. Now, CX Racing offers one of the most attractive turbo kits on the market today. For only $2,300, that's gonna include a completed turbo kit with pretty much all of the parts that I just listed. All right, so let's talk about your fuel system. Sure, you can run your stock fuel system on a CX Racing turbo kit, but why would you want to? I mean, we're talking about at least 20 to 30 years old as far as your fuel system goes on that part. We're going for cheap and reliable, right? So let's go ahead and upgrade those pieces to make this even more reliable. And what you're gonna wanna look at are things like your fuel injectors, your fuel rail, your fuel lines, fuel fittings to make those lines connect to your fuel rails. You also need maybe a fuel pump, right? We're gonna upgrade all of those things. And what I would probably do is budget anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500 on the very high side, depending on what you wanna go. Lastly, let's consider an ECU. Having a reliable standalone is very important for your NAT setup. Investing in things like map sensors, air temperature sensors, and a wideband to see where your AFRs are, obviously it's gonna require a tune, but everything's just going to make your NAT build that much more reliable. You can actually find an AEM V2 on the Facebook Marketplace for about $1,000. And that's a plug and play setup that requires very little wiring to get it all working. You can watch some of the videos on how I did it, and you'll be on your way to a very reliable NAT build. I would probably keep a realistic budget of around $1,000 to $1,500 to run a standalone. That's not gonna include tuning. Tuning is gonna be depending on who's available in your area to tune your car, maybe a little bit more or a lot more, depending on who you get to tune your car. So how much money is all of this gonna cost you? Well, try to have a budget of anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000. This is if you're gonna buy everything brand new. If you can somehow find all of these parts that I just went over used, then you're gonna save yourself a lot of money. And so you need to keep that in mind. But for right now, just keep that budget in your head, $5,000 to $6,000 to build a cheap, reliable NAT build. So how much money did I spend to boost this 1995 Lexus sc300? let's go ahead and take a look at what's underneath the hood. So what you're looking at here is my NAT setup. I am running a Boost Logic turbo kit. I have a couple of videos about this turbo kit, but in case you might have not seen it, basically I picked this turbo kit up a couple years ago, and sadly this turbo kit is no longer available. At least it's been discontinued, or so I've been told. Now, when this kit was available, this kit was literally advertised as every single thing you need to convert your NA motor into an NAT setup like what you see here today. But this kit took it an additional step further, in the sense that it came with things like fuel injectors, a fuel pump, a head gasket, and ARP head studs, which most of the kits that are out there or available today don't come with any of those things at all. I got this kit, okay, for $1,650. And it was missing a couple of things like the injectors, the fuel pump, and a wastegate, which was okay because for the price that I paid, it really didn't matter. But when this kit was brand new, it was about $5,000. So I got a pretty good deal on this kit. All right, so let's talk about my fuel system setup. I am running Fuel Injector Clinic 650cc injectors, and I have it all tied into my Radium fuel rail. I'm running a custom braided stainless steel fuel line here, made by yours truly, and that's going into my adjustable fuel pump regulator. And then that all gets tied back into the stock return system. Now, as far as the feed system goes, which you can't really see right now, it's all being pushed by a single Walbro 450 fuel pump. And if I had to guesstimate how much all of that cost altogether, I would say probably around $1,300, but I'm just gonna round up and just maybe call it $1,500. I am running an AEM V2 plug-and-play standalone. I found that on Facebook Marketplace. I think I paid around $1,000 shipped, and it's working great. It's got its flaws, it's got its limitations, but I can't complain. On top of that, I spent another $650 or $600 for Freed Engineering to tune this car, and then that's not including all the little bits and pieces that I mentioned earlier on this video, which are things like the map sensor, the air temperature sensor, the boost solenoid, and other things that I can't think of right now off the top of my head. So after the standalone, the tuning, and all of the sensors and wiring and everything I needed to get it all to work in this car, I think I spent around $2,000 just on that setup. So when we add my turbo kit, $1,650, my fuel pump setup, $1,500, and $2,000 for everything else, the grand total for me on this cheap but reliable sc300 NAT build comes up to about $5,200. Now I know $5,200 or $5,000 is a lot of money, okay? It's not cheap, okay? And I'm calling it cheap and reliable. But you have to think about how it's been going for the last couple of years, okay? If you don't remember, this car made 350 horsepower to the rear wheels on a very conservative tune, okay? It's only running 9-10 PSI. If I want to run more, I can get a retune. This thing has head gasket, head studs, new oil pump, sorry. It's more than capable of running more boost. The only limitation right now with this setup is the W58 trans, okay? I don't want to push it past more than 350 because I don't feel like picking up pieces of trans off the ground when I do a pull. That's just me being honest. But when you factor in that I have been driving this car daily to work for the last 2 years since it's been dynoed, and this car has not given me a single issue, I say that this is money well spent. So that's gonna be it for this video. Obviously, I'm fully aware that this is not the only way to accomplish a reliable NAT build, okay? There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, if you will. But I'm really curious, what was some of the things that you guys went through in your NAT build, and how much did you spend? Was it reliable? Did it leave you stranded? What were some of the obstacles you faced? What were some of the successes you had? Please share it all in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.